I've been watching a lot of One Piece lately.
The One Piece!
One Piece is good, like really good. It's really addictive too. There's something really infectious about Luffy's resolve and the genuinely pure bonds of friendship that unite this ragtag group of lovable misfits. In case you don't know, One Piece is about a pirate crew going on fun adventures in uncharted territory, helping people wherever they go, and working towards their captain Monkey D. Luffy's dream of finding the legendary One Piece, a mysterious treasure that gives you the right to be the king of the pirates.
I'm the man who'll be king of the pirates!
No one knows what the One Piece is. In fact, it might be one of the greatest mysteries in modern media. Now, I know I'm somewhat late to the party here. Some of you guys have been following this for nearly 30 years, and I am by no means fully caught up on the story so far. But still, I think I may have figured out what the One Piece is. Or at the very least, I have a strong theory that I wanted to share with you guys, based on the narrative and thematic functions that I believe the One Piece reveal will have to adhere to. I've been hanging out in the subreddits for One Piece, and I've seen many fan theories about what the One Piece could actually turn out to be, but the vast majority of them seem to fall short. It's difficult to imagine an answer to this mystery that wouldn't end up being a massive disappointment. This story has over 1,100 chapters so far. After nearly 30 years, the final reveal has to feel like it was worth the wait. I do not envy Oda at all, or the task ahead of him in providing a satisfying conclusion to this story. At this point, it would be near impossible to write an ending that wouldn't be controversial for some people. Still, the majority of the various One Piece fan theories that I've seen mostly suffer from the same problem. That being that they either contradict the narrative or they fail on a thematic level. We don't know much about the One Piece in canon, but we do have a few clues as to what it might be. Indications and implications based on how it is presented to us. Narratively and canonically, we do know that the One Piece is real.
The One Piece is real!
Oda himself has confirmed that the One Piece is a physical object and not an abstract concept such as the power of friendship. It is described to us as wealth, fame, and power.
Gold Roger attained this and everything else life had to offer.
The person who finds the
One Piece!
automatically becomes the king of the pirates, and the narrative implies that this is because the person who owns
The One Piece, yeah!
becomes so powerful that they become the undisputed ruler of the seas. Such is the power of
The One Piece!
In other words, all of the narrative setup seems to imply that the
One Piece!
is a treasure that gives its owner great power. So, an object of great power. That could be anything, right? It could be an unbreakable sword, it could be a devil fruit, except it's not that simple. You see, for a story about pirates, One Piece is really about the friends we made along the way. The Straw Hats are established to be honorable, kind, generous people. Their selflessness often puts themselves in harm's way, and yet their friendship consistently proves to be their greatest strength. The villains that Luffy faces often clash with him ideologically. They are cunning, selfish people, willing to hurt anyone and everyone to get what they want. Luffy often helps the weak and innocent for no reason other than because it's the right thing to do. Luffy values the bonds of friendship more than anything else, even his own life. Luffy believes in dreams, adventure, resolve, and friendship. If the One Piece was merely a weapon of power and nothing more, it couldn't be useful to him in achieving his dreams and going on further adventures. It wouldn't be of any interest to him. In other words, it would be boring, and Luffy doesn't really like boring things. And therein lies the problem. In order for the central mystery of the story to not end up being a massive disappointment, the reveal of what the One Piece actually is has to work on both a narrative and a thematic level. If the One Piece reveal only fulfills its narrative function, the story would fail on a thematic level. However, if the One Piece turns out to merely be an object of metaphorical value, like a symbol of friendship, the story would not have an effective narrative payoff. Therefore, the One Piece must be an object that has both metaphorical thematic value and real, practical, narrative in-world value. It must be an object that has the power to be used for benevolent good, but could also be used for terrible evil in the wrong hands. This concept is not entirely unprecedented in the narrative. The Skypiea arc highlights the dials as examples of powerful, useful objects that can be used benevolently, but equally can also be used to induce harm.
For example, the heat dial used for cooking can be placed inside a lance and used to generate thermal energy, creating the deadly weapon known as the heat javelin.
Taking all of this into consideration, I think I may have figured it out, and I believe that Red Hair Shanks is the key to all of this. You see, Luffy doesn't want to become the king of the pirates just because he's power hungry or greedy. He wants it because of his friend Shanks, his childhood hero, the pirate who saved his life as a child and gave him the straw hat that he values above all else. And despite Shanks still being alive and well and sailing the high seas in the present day, Luffy and Shanks have not met since the day that Shanks gave Luffy that hat. They are aware of each other being out there somewhere, but they never seem to be able to find each other. They keep missing each other, sometimes just barely. The narrative does not want Shanks and Luffy to reunite. So, what if the One Piece was an object that had the power to actually bring them together? What if the One Piece was an object that could tell you where and how to get exactly where you want to go? What if it had the power to tell Luffy how to find Shanks? What if the One Piece was a compass? A special compass that could help you navigate anywhere in the Grand Line? Narratively, this actually works. Navigation is a serious problem in the world of One Piece. If you want to navigate in the Grand Line, you need to follow predetermined routes using a log pose, which can only change direction when you remain on an island for a certain period of time. The only other option is using an eternal pose, each of which only points to one island and one island only. The only way to freely navigate in the Grand Line is to collect one eternal pose for every single island, which is both inefficient and probably impossible. A compass that has the ability to simply tell you exactly where you need to go would have immense value in this world, and it would give any pirate the undisputed advantage over all others. It would give them the ability to explore the Grand Line freely, while all others are forced to rely on log poses. It would make you the king of the pirates, the ruler of the sea. Wealth, fame, power. But it also works thematically as well. It would give Luffy the ability to adventure around the world wherever he wanted, go to places that no one else could ever have been able to find. More importantly, it would help Luffy find Shanks. It would be poetic if the titular One Piece was what Luffy needed to find his long-lost friend, and the story would end where it began, with Luffy and Shanks together again. Now, I am aware that the object that I'm describing is essentially Captain Jack Sparrow's compass from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, that being a compass that points to whatever it is that you want most in this world. However, it's worth remembering that the Pirates of the Caribbean movies didn't exist when Oda first started writing One Piece. Who knows, maybe he was thinking this originally and changed his mind when those films started becoming popular. Regardless of whether or not this theory ends up being correct, I seriously hope that whatever Oda comes up with is as good as everything he's come up with so far. One Piece is one of the greatest stories of our time, and it deserves an ending as strong as everything leading up to it.